being a mom feels so far removed from my essence. Like I was like, I'm going to fail. Like I'm not going to be able to do it. It is a journey that you're choosing to take that sort of prepares you for motherhood. So after I did my rounds of IVF or, embryo making, I felt so much more ready to become a mom. And it was wild how if you had asked me months prior before engaging in that process, if I was ready to become a mom, I'd be like, yes, crazy. I don't think I want to do this. And then afterwards, I was like, no, I think I'm like ready. Of course it's hard being a mom. Of course it's hard being a parent, but it's so much more joyful than it is hard. And now that I'm a mom, I have this like deep belief that motherhood is in every birthing parent and it is dormant, and only will it need to be released when it has to be released. But when it releases, motherhood shows up in like big bright colors, and it's like it's there. It can't be stopped. I now say it feels like it's harder to be a bad mom than it is to be a good mom, because actually it's something that just comes out of you and it can't be stopped.
Welcome to the Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be hear stories from other mothers and top experts in the pregnancy and postpartum care field. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. You can also find us at goldenhour.fm on Instagram for comments and questions. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Golden Hour. I'm your host, Dr. O, and today I'm joined by Aarti Bhatnagar, a Bay Area native who lives in Oakland with her husband and her 9-month-old daughter. She's, in fact, my neighbor. Like, you're right around the corner.
Sharing a wall.
We share a wall, in fact, which is so awesome. She's a proud UC Berkeley grad, Go Bears, which is kind of awkward because I went to Stanford and I know we have this rivalry. We'll sort it out by the end of this episode. Aarti's worn many professional hats, but her passion lies in supporting high-impact leaders. She's a founder of Cadence Operators, a boutique leadership firm that empowers CEOs, chiefs of staff, biz op leaders, and early-stage founders through executive coaching, search, and retreat facilitation. She brings a deep love of systems, strategy, and soul to everything that she does. Today, she's here to share her journey through new motherhood and leadership. Welcome, Aarti. Oh, I'm so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for thinking of me for this.
Oh, man. It was actually kind of serendipitous in that, early in your pregnancy, you chatted to me about like OBs, and you even at some point even considered joining my practice. Mm-hmm. But it was perfect because we were just doing like neighborhood things. I think we're like both at the mailbox or something. And I saw you out there with your sweetums, and I was just like, you know what? I want to get her on the bike. I want to hear her story. So this is going to be like, I'm actually really excited because, I've had the honor of having many guests up to this point, and some of the earlier guests were some of my girlfriends. So I've heard their story already, but like for you, I get to hear it fresh, like live. Yeah. I get to just take it in. And so thank you again for agreeing to be a part of the magic.
Of course. Thank you.
We're going to just jump in. So, when I really think about what you've embarked on, I say this with utmost respect. It's a courageous thing to determine that you want to be a mom, to actually be a mom, and now you're in the thick of it. And the fact that you and I are even sitting here means that your daughter is either well behaved and or napping. But I love that you've found the time for this, because I say this as someone who's had the honor of caring for thousands of patients. One of my prior guests actually said it really well. She's like, "Oh yeah, you mother others." I'm not biologically a mom myself, but I care deeply about my patients, and I've seen from start to finish, those who maybe even have fertility journey issues to, the tolls that pregnancy actually puts on your body, let alone the massive transformation that happens postpartum. Yeah. So somehow magically in an hour or less, we're going to cover it all.
It's a lot.
Here we go. Here we go. But, when you think about when you and Mike were thinking about starting your family, what was that the process for you, kind of thinking about like motherhood and starting the family? What were some of those early thoughts?
Yeah. I think so for Mike and I, my husband, we've always been the type that are like, we love each other. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, that's life.
Yeah.
That was kind of the mindset we were going into this. And then we just start having conversations with people, especially in the place where we live in the Bay Area. Everyone's an optimizer. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So we were having a conversation with a friend and we're like, yeah, we're thinking about just kind of trying. And she was like, well, do you want two? And I was like, probably. And she was like, well, you should stop trying and you should be making embryos. And I was like, what? And she was like, well, how
Yeah.
old are you? And then she like asked me my age and I was 33 at the time. And she was like, oh, yeah, you need to stop trying naturally. You need to make embryos because the reality of you actually trying after is is less realistic.
Mm.
So you need to make embryos immediately. So my husband and I were kind of on this pathway of thinking about how do we do that.
Mhm.
We got a bit it's a weird thing to say, but I got a little lucky in that I
Yeah.
got laid off, which people don't normally say they got lucky when they get laid off, but I got laid
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
The luck came in that I had these fertility coverage that I hadn't used, and we decided to it was gonna go away. Let's I got laid off into May, and it was gonna go away in October, so we're like,
Yeah.
"Let's take advantage of fertility coverage," so we did 2 rounds of IVF and making embryos. And
Yeah.
I know how difficult the road of making children is for so, so, so many parents and to expecting parents, women in particular, and, um, it again, I felt lucky in that we weren't in a place of struggle,
Mm.
but wanted to secure embryos
Yeah.
via support from a former employer. Like, there were so many things that were happening that were in our favor in that moment, and I say that with the utmost grace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
so
yeah.
so no, so well said, right? That when you captured the milieu that is the Bay Area, right? We're all type A, we're all a little OCD. We have our checklists, we want to optimize, optimize. And so many times for me as an OB, I'm meeting patients who are asking me, again, very thoughtful, empowering questions that come from a place of privilege because those are the same patients who employers do have that benefit and they're trying to understand, based on the family planning, should I freeze eggs if they're not partnered, or should I freeze embryos if they're not ready to start a family yet? Or do I just go for it? And like that's a very nuanced conversation. And part of that nuance, which I think you really spoke to, which means a lot to me, is recognizing that's a conversation of privilege. And I think that anytime I have these conversations, especially because my heart, I went into OB and women's health actually to combat health disparities as best as I can, and I recognize that in the Bay Area, I have the honor of caring for a lot of high-powered professional women, but that means that we have privilege from our financial backing and
Yeah.
privilege from, our employers, and just recognizing that family planning is a privilege, is a choice. That being said, you probably don't know this, but and I froze some embryos last summer
Oh,
ourselves because you who knows about biological clocks ticking real loud than an OB himself. And
exactly.
in that journey, I had my own, uh, 180, if you will, where I'm oftentimes sitting at the vantage point of a provider and clinician, which is a privilege of like, oh, here's what you do, and I can talk about it really calmly and not necessarily. I don't take on like the risk or the anxiety of what if this doesn't work, and then suddenly you're the patient and you're like, are these drugs gonna work? Do I have to do several rounds in order to get the amount of embryos that we're aiming for, et cetera? And so I really do understand kind of the multiple points that you make. One of just recognizing, hey, I had employer coverage and we wanted to take advantage of it. When I talk with my colleagues and friends who are fertility specialists, they oftentimes say that embryo freezing is probably for number 2 and number 3. And so it's definitely worthwhile to consider that. So your friend gave you great
Yeah.
advice. When I was listening to your friend's advice, I'm like, is your friend an obstetrician
No,
who
she
saw
just
this?
it was
She's
incredible.
on it.
She was on it, and we just hadn't
Yeah.
been thinking that way. We just were like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, we're gonna, like, have a kid, and then we'll, like, see what happens," which, again,
Yeah.
could have been totally perfect.
Yeah.
But I appreciate this sort of moment where she was like, "Well, if you want to do intentional family planning, this is what I would recommend." And again, the privilege comes in that it worked out that I had coverage because it's, as you know, wildly expensive to do 1
Yeah.
round of trying to make eggs and embryos, and oftentimes women need to do at least
Multiple.
2 or 3 rounds to get
Yeah.
the numbers you wanna get.
Yeah. And talk about privilege. I acknowledge my privilege as a clinician, but I don't have fertility benefits with my job. So
Yeah,
when my husband and I were exploring that together and I talk again with my good friends who are fertility specialists locally, and they gave me, even with like a doctor's discount, their quotes. I was like, okay, well, like, this is an investment for a future. It's worthwhile. But fortunately for me, as you know, my husband's Turkish. And so one of his best friends is a fertility specialist in Turkey, has a great practice, actually did like a research fellowship at Stanford. And I, in my own serendipitous luck, was able to get my fertility care and freeze our embryos in Turkey. And
Wow.
I'm not ashamed to say the cost out loud because it's crazy. It was a deal, $3,000 for everything. Yeah,
That's it. I paid so while I got it covered, the
yeah,
medicine alone
yeah,
was more than $3,000.
yes.
Like, the injections alone were more than $3,000.
Yeah, and so I think you and I are both sitting here recognizing, like, our good fortune,
Yes.
and I'm grateful for it. Whenever I think about, we have not decided as a unit whether or not we're gonna use our embryos quite yet, but, I always think to myself, "Okay, well, whatever I saved making these embryos will go to, like, college tuitions." I mean, heck, like, middle school tuitions, Bay Area, schools, it's a whole thing.
I know.
Anyway, but I really appreciate your perspective and honestly also just your insight of just recognizing that you are able to take advantage of something. I love the term that you use, intentional family planning.
Yeah,
That's something, so much of my goal of having conversations like this on the podcast is to help people feel empowered in whatever way that looks like. So thank you.
of course.
So it sounds like you guys froze embryos in that, or made embryos, actually, I'm not making assumptions. Did you decide to use any of those embryos for, like, a live transfer?
Yeah, so the intention was we weren't gonna do a live transfer, we wanted to do some travel, and so we're like, "Okay, let's
Yeah,
do some travel, and
yeah,
then after some international travel, we'll come back and we'll use one of the embryos," or I don't know.
yeah,
I still don't fully know how it works because
yeah,
I
yeah,
the story will unfold as you hear it, but
yeah.
it didn't end up happening. We ended up naturally conceiving, which, was a shock to the system, to say the least.
Wow.
I love my husband so much, and it was like a, like, one and done situation, like, we weren't, tracking ovulation, tracking
Yeah.
anything, and it just happened, and I
Wow.
now that I've, like, talked to so many women and people about this, I do think there's something, like, I don't know, spiritual about it in that
Mm.
we're not stressed, like, we were just hanging out and loving on each other
Aw.
and, like, not tracking anything, and I had no idea what day I was ovulating, and Um, and I think the pressure was off, and I do think
Mhm.
that maybe supported in conception. And maybe this is me being a little woo woo. You're a doctor, so maybe you can actually give me some of the facts on this. But like, I was like, maybe because I did the, embryo making process and was injecting
Mhm.
all of these hormones, maybe it like
Mhm.
opened up something in me that like made it easier to conceive naturally. I honestly have no idea, but TLDR is that we were shocked once we found out we were
Yeah.
naturally because that wasn't the plan. The plan was to, travel and then, use the embryos and make an IVF baby.
Yeah, yeah, wow. See, this is why I'm honestly I'm loving this episode already because I get to find out all these things for, like, my general reactions are real. They are like,
Yeah,
it's not falsified. No, but totally, I think as much as I am a person of science and I'm a doctor, I believe in the woo-woo because you can't practice as long as I had and as long as I intend to practice without just understanding that I always say this, medicine is so much an art as much as it is a science, and that there are things that are unexplainable, there are things that we actually really can't control, and everyone does know scientifically that there is a mind-body connection, right? That the cortisol levels that we produce when we're stressed has an effect downstream on many parts of our body, including our reproductive organs and our hormones. And so, not to say that that those who have fertility struggles are like to blame for being overly stressed out about something that is stressful, right? Like there's no perfect way to capture it, but I oftentimes find that there is something about like the okay, we're just gonna, like,
yeah,
give in to whatever, like, life has in store, kind of trying. Although you have to still, most people are not so lucky in that you have to time ovulation to some degree, yeah,
right.
versus, like, that really stringent, like, we have, like, 3 days of the month, we're timing our body temperature, doing all these things, and that pressure is real and that pressure is valid, and what I struggle with as an OB, and I'll flip it back to you as someone who sits as a patient is, you know how to get that, to give that counseling of like, okay, this is how time intercourse works. This is what needs to be done, and not add to that pressure, right? Like, I think it's so beautiful that you and Mike were like traveling the globe, just loving on each other, having a grand old time, and boom, sperm met egg, and it fertilized, and it stuck, and it grew, and it was genetically normal. Like all
Yeah.
these
I know
things
all the things right.
that went right. Which
Yeah.
is beautiful, and again, we have this conversation not to take away from the fact that, like, most people spend most of our young adult lives trying not to get pregnant, right? As soon as we become sexually active, everyone's just like, "What can I do to make sure I don't necessarily have an unplanned pregnancy?" And suddenly, when most of us, like, in the Bay Area, again, when we, enter our 30s, mid-30s, late 30s, sometimes early 40s, make that decision of, like, "Hey, I want my family, and I want my family to happen right now." It is like that instant, like, pressure to, like, make it happen. And
Yes.
so I find when I'm meeting patients for what we call, like, a preconception consultation, so, like, pre-pregnancy planning visit, it's like, how do I make them feel empowered and informed in terms of how it all works without adding to, like, the extra external pressure that we all feel, right? Like, I think your friend had this really thoughtful approach of, like, being intentional about your family planning, like, feeling empowered by it. When you got that advice from your friend, did you take it as pressure? Did it feel, like, negative and weigh down on you? Or were you like, "Okay, like, let me do something about this, let
Yeah.
me go."
I think my gut reaction was it did feel pressure in that, not that this person was putting pressure on me, but
Yeah.
I do think I felt like, "Oh my gosh, we're behind," or we're, like, not thinking, "How did we not
Mm.
know that? How did we not,
Mhm.
like, think about the sequence of it all?" But it's like anything, it's just something that was new, but once we got going and, we had the conversation with the fertility clinics and we recognized, what the process was gonna be, the pressure was definitely gone, and it was just about being actively present in the
Yeah.
journey with your fertility clinic and fertility
Yeah.
doctor, and I feel really lucky in that I really enjoyed our process with our fertility clinic and doctor, and I know that is a whole journey in and of itself for so many
Yeah.
people, like, you know choosing the right clinic, and do you trust your doctor, and some people get really optimizey in terms of, like, outcomes per clinic and then choose clinics per that, or
Mm.
they don't get the egg count or embryos that they want and then go from clinic to clinic, and it worked out with us in that we were able to make a subset of embryos we were happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and then the woo showing up and having our baby show up the way she did.
Yeah. She's just like, "Nah, I
He's
have my
just like,
own
"I
way
have
I'm gonna
my
get
own
this
plan."
world."
I know.
Yeah.
My
I'm
husband has
good.
a quote. He's like, "It's like humans plan and God laughs."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
we can try to plan, and then the higher being, life will happen
Yeah.
as it's supposed
Yeah.
to.
I mean, I think that's why the other thing I often say is it's truly humbling to be another human who has the honor of caring for other humans. Because I sit back and I think there's something about, like, choosing to start a family if you're able to, in whatever way that looks like for you too, right? And then, be able to carry your pregnancy and then birthing a baby in that most of our lives, we have a locus of control. Most of our lives, we're able to say, okay, today I want to eat X. I'm going to order on DoorDash, or like, I want to drive here to buy this thing. Right. But like you said, there was an egg inside of you that was just like that then became your daughter, and a
Yes.
sperm that were just like, "Nah, we're gonna do it our way," right? Like, and you have that, we're gonna talk about your pregnancy in a bit. So you have, how pregnancy goes, and then also like the some of my favorite stories are birth stories, because
Oh,
birth stories are wild. You have no idea. You have no idea. And so there's something for me, like, I feel so fortunate, and these conversations remind me why I'm so fortunate to have chosen my field, or maybe my field chose me, and that it's like this opportunity to really be like, you know what, we're human, we're animals. We're gonna just we will live as we live and hope for the best and optimize the best as we can. Thank goodness for modern medicine. Thank goodness for modern obstetrics, and that, yes, like, I physically have skills that can keep moms and babies alive that we didn't have, hundreds of years ago. But I also am like, this is magic. And I just get to sometimes sit back and just like watch the
yeah,
magic happen. It's
totally.
beautiful. Before we move on to your pregnancy, I had one more question, especially thinking about you now as you kind of have created cadence operators, and you're working with high-powered individuals, some of which are women, and you don't know how often in those conversations of where their own family planning comes in, but I imagine you also just have. probably a whole cadre of amazing friends who are badass boss bitches like
Totally.
yourself. And like I think about these conversations, little me.
Promise you're gonna
I think but I think about those conversations again, that same friend who gave you some real thoughtful advice. And what are the conversations that you're having with your friend groups now? Have you paid forward that same conversation? Have you had that same
Yeah.
conversation with other friends now? And what does it look like as, yeah, like a high powered
Mm.
individual, someone who is career driven or maybe even academically driven or both? How would you advise your clique to
Yeah.
approach their family planning?
Yeah, I mean, uh, in terms of paying it forward, I'm a big believer that it's so important to unlock the unknown,
Mhm.
um, especially given that it's so many of ours first time, and I think we can just kind of operate with this, like, feeling that, "Oh, yeah, like, I'll figure it out as it happens," which is, again, not a bad way to do it,
Mhm.
but without information, we're just unaware, right? And so I do
Yeah.
think platforms like this, like a podcast where you have followers and they can hear different stories is so powerful,
Mm.
especially for people that are in the early stages of family planning and are trying to figure out, how do I approach this? And so yeah, I think for me and my husband, it was just really powerful to go through the journey that we did and the different
Mhm.
phases that we did. And in particular for me, there's this word that I use, that I discovered when I was going through my rounds of IVF called matrescence. It's the, like,
Oh, yeah.
physical and, like, spiritual becoming of a mother, and
Yeah.
I never thought that was something that was natural for me. I'm a youngest child. I have an elder sister. Like, I grew up in, like, I don't know, just like being a brat. Like, I grew up as
Yeah.
the youngest
Oh,
kid.
same. I'm the baby in my family, and I stay being a baby.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just like, that's just like being a mom feels so far removed from my
Yeah.
essence. Like, I was like, I'm gonna fail. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And I have a whole
Mhm.
theory on momhood, which I'm happy to get into. But like
Yeah.
that process really introduced me to, like, something that was out of my control, in that I was becoming a
Mm.
mother, like, the matrescence, the
Mm.
sacrifice I was already doing, giving myself injections every day for weeks, like, going
Mm.
under this process, and, you know, it's a it is a fraction of what pregnancy is and birth is, but nonetheless, it is a journey that you're choosing to take that sort of prepares you for motherhood. So after I did my rounds of IVF, or, embryo making, I felt so much more ready to become a mom, and it was
Mm.
wild how, if you had asked me months prior before engaging in that process, if I was ready to become a mom, I'd be like, "Yes, crazy, I don't think I wanna do this." And then afterwards, I was like, "No, I think I'm, like, ready." I look
Mm.
forward to implanting one of these embryos to make a
Yeah.
baby, you know?
Yeah. How beautiful. You probably didn't know that, but now you're gonna know. So the term that you said, I call it matrescence, but
Oh,
it's
I
all
have
the
no
same.
idea.
No,
Matrix.
no, no, no. It's all the same. I knew exactly what you're saying, but matrescence, that's my motto. Like
Mm.
matrescence, I actually learned that term not in med school because not in residency because we can go back and talk for hours about how how incredible but yet somewhat lacking, medical education is in terms of the humanistic part of this reproductive lifestyle. And so I think one of my early podcast episodes now months ago, I had the honor of interviewing this amazing perinatal therapist, Molly. And we're talking about like, yeah, the emotional transformation in pregnancy and postpartum and even for fertility challenges. And she utilized that term matrescence. I was like, what? Tell me more. And as I've taught myself, thanks to Molly, over the past year, that term, it's everything, right? It is that epic transformation from the moment someone decides they want to start a family, because even that journey, again, depending on the person, can be enduring. It can be a month, like a one shot if you're real lucky, or it can be years long journey. And through postpartum, by the way, isn't up to 6 weeks. It's
Yeah.
more like a year or 2 and sometimes 3 years after having your baby. And then if you depending on how you time pregnancies, sometimes you're perpetually pregnant, right? You're like pregnant, then you're in postpartum, then you're pregnant again, a year and a half years later. And so matrescence really is the perfect way to capture it, right? It talks about not only the hormonal shifts, but the identity shifts. There are studies to show that your brain literally changes its structure because of all the emotional, physical hormonal changes that you're going through. And I think the way our society is set up, it really tends to, I think, undermine how epically transformational motherhood is. It's not just like, oh, you have a baby, like everyone else has done it before, like, and snap back in 3 months, and like, here you go. Like, no, 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 no. Like, you are a wholly different person
Yeah.
in terms of how you show up for yourself, your family. Like, you are technically the baby, but you're not really the baby
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Your relationship with your husband. I mean, there's so many things, and so I'm excited because clearly you and I are gonna do a deep dive, but I appreciate that you learned that terminology, and I appreciate that for you, it started as early as your fertility journey. Like, I can't decide if it was, like, the hormones, but I think it was not just the hormones, but I definitely remember, like, maybe week 2 or 3 when I was really jacked on hormones, just really yeah, I felt different about the process. I felt
Yeah.
different about, honestly, my partner and our us teaming up to create these embryos and what that meant for us and in terms of our relationship. It feels powerful.
Yeah.
And I love that that process helps you like unlock um a piece of mothering in you that was always there that you didn't necessarily give yourself
Yeah.
credit.
I describe it as like motherhood is I now have this theory that like
Share it.
that yes, that like especially as this youngest child syndrome, let's call it, right? Where you're just like,
Mm.
I've historically lived my life very selfishly, not selflessly, versus maybe your
But are
older
you in
sibling.
my head?
Yeah, I know.
Yes,
Exactly.
same season.
Yeah. Versus like I have an older sister and she's like very nurturing. It's just like
I
it's like in
know.
her DNA to be nurturing. And I was just like,
Mhm.
yo, I got like I'm gonna thank you for taking care of me. Bye. Like it's
Yeah,
never
yeah, yeah.
necessarily.
100%.
And now that I'm a mom, I have this like deep belief that
Mm.
motherhood is in every birthing parent and it is dormant and only
Mm.
will it need to be released when it has to be released. But when it
Mm.
releases, motherhood shows up in like big bright colors and it's like it's there. It can't be stopped.
Beautiful,
And now I have this theory
beautiful.
that it's actually because people ask me like, is it hard being a of course it's hard being a mom. Of course it's hard being a parent, but it's so much more joyful than it is hard.
Mhm.
And I also think that, like, sometimes I just feel like I'm, like, literally living my life on autopilot, and I feel like and I don't say it in the negative, I say it in, like, a kind of wow way, in
Mhm.
that it almost feels harder to fight against evolution and, like, the natural world order of being a
Mhm.
mother than it is to not. So I now say it feels like it's harder to be a bad mom than it is to be a good mom because it's so
Mm.
natural for birthing individuals to be mothers.
Yeah.
This dormancy thing that I'm talking about, like, once it opens up, you have to fight really hard to be a bad parent or bad mom,
Yeah.
because actually
Yeah.
it's something that just comes out of you and it can't be stopped.
Yeah. You can't even control it.
Yeah.
No, that's so beautiful. It gave me chills. I think shared this with my partner as we go back and forth. We're both appropriately ambivalent about parenthood, but as we go back and forth, I've told him, and this is really validating. So I'm going to play this episode for him and sit him down. But I've told my partner that you know even as we go through our lists of yes or no kids, I recognize that there is a version of Anna who I've been the baby my whole life. I'm really good at being selfish. I'm really good at my boundaries. I'm really good about prioritizing myself because I truly believe like I can't give and give and give to my patients, let alone my loved ones, unless like my cup is full too. And so I recognize that there's like a very selfless part of me that I haven't unlocked that I might live my whole life not unlocking if I don't mother. I have to mourn feels really dramatic, but I have to come to peace with the fact that like
Mhm.
that's just a part of me that I won't know. Like there's definitely a part of me that I never knew until I married my husband and I'm so grateful for him. Definitely my sister's like, you're a better person now that you've married you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thanks. Yes, he's definitely making me a better person. But I still think that in that evolution, that goes back to matrescence. Matrescence isn't evolution. We are ever evolving,
Yeah.
right? In that evolution to me being like the penultimate version of Anna, I think that motherhood will bring me there.
Yeah.
And I know, again, I'm talking to you very frankly, like, I know I might not tap into that person. I still love myself and I still wanna live a great life, but I I'm very aware, and I agree with you. I do think that there's this, like, untapped potential that just, like, gets unlocked, and the rest happens naturally and cascades forward in something beautiful and bright as you described, and I also wanna pay homage to the people who don't get to birth,
Yeah,
but still start families, right? Whether it's, whether or not it's someone who ends up using the gestational carrier, there's still something that happens
absolutely.
when you fall in love with a tiny human, and
Totally.
then the rest
Yeah,
is
and
yeah, the
I'm
rest happens.
sure this feeling of dormancy, you know, it definitely exists when you're birthing the child, but even if you're not birthing the child, I appreciate what you're reframing there. I don't think it has to be only birthing, even if you have alternative routes of taking care of now a new
Yeah,
baby, I think the floodgates just open up and you can't stop,
yeah,
really.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I wanna do deep a dive at motherhood because I have a
yeah.
feeling that you and I are kindred spirits and in that approach, even though, again, I never mothered, but I have clearly have tons of experience just from caring for others. But before we get there, can you give me kind of your takeaway of how pregnancy was for you? Was there anything
Yeah.
that was, um, very unexpected for you?
Mm.
Anything that was incredibly joyful for you? How was it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think for me, pregnancy all in all was I enjoyed being pregnant.
Yeah.
And again, I say this, and sometimes I'm like, am I just the type of person that's like really glass half full and I forget? And that also probably is it. And like, if you were to talk to me like on a specific day that I was like, heartburn was real, like that, like I would probably say this sucks. Get this baby out of me.
Yeah.
We need to end
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
But all in all, if I was to like step back now, it's actually really crazy because my daughter's birthday or her 9 months is today. So I'm like,
Aw.
months out or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a really cool day to be reflecting generally. But
Yeah.
all in all, I do think it was I enjoyed it. It was a joyful experience. I think the surprises, oh my gosh, so many surprises. I didn't know how like hot I was gonna be all the time. Like I was always hot.
Yeah.
And I think you like can read about these things, but like I just couldn't fall asleep because my feet were just like hot. So that was like a
Yeah.
wild, and I know these are like cheeky ha 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 things, but I do think
No, no, no.
parts were really gnarly and you don't talk like, I never experienced heartburn before. People talk about heartburn, I'm like, "I don't really know what you're talking about." And then I did, and I
Yeah.
was like, "This is miserable."
It's horrible.
Like, I could not sleep all night, like, wanted to puke, was fighting just, like, this feeling of this thing in you. I've historically also dealt with pelvic floor issues, and
Mhm.
so pelvic pain was really real.
Mhm.
Man, I've historically worked with a pelvic PT, which was
Yeah.
had some of the tools to use, but just was,
Yeah.
I was like, man, it is hard to like, on some days, hard to walk or hard to like move your body in certain ways. Yeah. I mean, those are the things that were just wild. And then I also have just a crazy story from I don't know if I told you this, but I accidentally ingested 40 milligrams of weed when I was 19 weeks pregnant. Did I tell you this?
I wish I would have loved if you just, like, knocked on the door and be like, "Do you take house calls?
Oh
Because
my
this
god,
is what
I
just
called the
happened."
I called
No.
the I called the cops. I freaked out.
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm 19 weeks
Oh.
pregnant," and I was high the whole, 48 hours of my
Oh,
of my
thing.
it was crazy.
Oh
So
my
that was the
goodness.
craziest story.
Yeah. Yeah. And your daughter's she's totally fine.
She's
She's totally
fine. It
fine.
was and I
Yeah.
feel lucky I have a friend who's an OB/GYN. My husband was
Yeah.
smart enough to call her right before the
Yeah.
high really, really, like,
Yeah.
took its journey, and she was like, "You're in your 2nd trimester,
Yep.
baby's fine. You just need to ride out the next
Yeah, yeah. You
some
just
kind of time."
ride this out.
I was like,
You need to ride this out. Oh my god. I can also just imagine, like, Mike was probably freaking stressing. Like, I can
yeah,
only imagine. One of my girlfriends has a similar what is it about just, like, accidentally ingesting, like, edibles when you're pregnant? But one of my good girlfriends has
really?
a
That's
similar story where just, like, she thought it was candy, and it was
me
actually
too.
literally at her baby shower. She thought it was candy. She's just like, "Oh, great," and just, like, took one, and then someone at the party was just like, "Oh, no, 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 no. That's just for, like, adults only." She's just like, "What?" Anyway,
No,
it
and I
happens.
think that I love that your friend had a similar, well, not for her, I mean, it feels nice
Yeah.
to be not
You're
alone.
not the only one. You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
But I think that was another wild thing is that, like, I mean, I'm sure you hear this all the time, of course, but I was eating like I was, 10 years old. Like, I was eating
Yeah.
sugar and bread, and so I similarly thought was looking at sugar, like normal sugar gummy bears.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was gummy bear. Same thing that got her. It's the gummy bears.
It's the
We
gummy
should just put
bear.
like a warning on gummy bears, like please consult with your OB if this is appropriate
I
for you.
know.
Look at the packages a little
Just
closer.
don't give
But yeah,
pregnant women and sugar and candy, like,
yeah,
don't put it around we are so
yeah,
I'm just like, I was downing it. I
yeah,
was like
yeah.
and I was like, "I deserve this." You know, I deserve
Yes,
sugars.
yes. Give me those gummies. And
I
then it turns
know.
out, but no, back to what you said before the gummy scare is, yeah, everything that you described, the heartburn, the temperature changes,
Yeah,
the pelvic floor discomfort, right? That's one of the toughest things for me as an OB is in one day I might see like 20 pregnant patients, right? And that same day, everyone feels like shit. Everyone feels crappy because, and I always say this, like growing a human being is no small feat,
yeah,
right? And so all of those symptoms are as your body's way of saying, okay, yeah, like, all right, like pelvic floor pain, it's because like literally your pelvic bones are like changing contour for delivery. Oh, back pain, yeah, because your body is
yeah,
holding weight it never has before. Body temperature changes, like your estrogen, progesterone levels are like going crazy, right? So there's a there's a reason for it, but physically experiencing it is tough. I mean, I think, I going back to like I guess like this podcast episode turned into a therapy like session for me. Thanks, Aarti. But
you're so
going back to me as like this the baby of the family, whatever. It's like some of it also comes. My mom used to call me. She had a little nickname of like, I think like she said something about I love being comforted, right? I love being comfortable, and
yeah,
so I can imagine me as just like the most annoying pregnant person. So maybe my ambivalence is to spare my husband being like, "Oh my God, turn down the temperature, turn it up, like whatever." It's just like this. It's so much, and yet
yeah.
you endured.
Yes.
You endured. How did you prep for labor? Was it kind of similar to kind of you and Mike's approach of like, what will be, and
Yeah.
we have an OB team that we trust, we're gonna go for it, or did you do any extra prep for the labor part?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved our OB team. I've been using the same OB for almost 10 plus years. Hence, it was hard for me to switch to you, or else I would have.
I know.
We would have
I didn't wanna bring it up on the pod, but
no,
took it a little personally. That's okay,
no,
well,
I know.
it's
We'll
okay.
settle that later. But
Yeah,
this
yeah.
OB team was great, and so that was why I stuck with them, and we did take some classes, like, I remember, like, vigorously taking notes during some class. Like,
Mhm.
"What?" I didn't know the different kinds of labor. It's like early labor, active
Yeah,
labor, like just things you just don't
yeah.
know or talk about enough. And so just like the details, the types of, interventions we could use, like I just, all of it you kind of hear about, but you don't know about things like I didn't
Mhm.
know that, it's not common for the water to break. Like you just you watch the
Yeah.
movies and you see the
Oh,
things
yeah.
like, yeah, the water's going to break.
Yeah.
That's how I know I'm pregnant. When you learn all these things,
Yeah.
not the case. So
Yeah.
we did take some classes, but generally the approach was trust the OB team, go into it. And I have some very good friends and some people in my life who are, they had a whole birth plan. It was like a
Yeah.
thing, and it was like the lights are going to be this way, the music's going to be this way, and I want like only this person to touch me, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
me, I did not have a written birth plan. My birth plan was get me an epidural, let me not feel anything, and let's get this baby out, and then let's go. Like, to me,
Yeah, yeah.
I honestly thought about labor as just a transition. It was just gonna that was my
Mm.
intention going in. It was gonna be like
Oh.
pregnancy, labor's like just a quick it's like a doctor's thing.
Yeah.
We, like, get the baby, and that's, like, what we're gonna do. That was, like, my idea of labor because, again, so much trust with the team. I was like, "They've got me." I ended up having an induction at 39 weeks, and
Okay.
it worked out that my OB was able to be on call
Mm.
during my delivery, and that was really
Oh,
nice too
yeah.
because it was like, "Great, she's gonna be there." So, like, I really walked into my labor being like, don't need, like, a plan. They generally know I want an epidural, and that's what it's gonna be. So that was the
Yeah.
intention. Did it go that way? Absolutely not. But that was the intention.
Honestly, I'm gonna be frank, my favorite type of birth plan, which is no plan at all. Like, I think that, like, you should have your intentions and your preferences and your wishes. Like, you should know that generally speaking, like, I know I want an epidural, but I think that the trick with the birth plan is kind of what we alluded to, right? Where we all are somewhat type A and we really want everything to happen according to plan. And labor, as I'm sure you're going to tell us in a moment, is a wild ride. And sometimes I feel like it's those patients who have birth plans that they feel so wedded to that walk away disappointed and not realizing, hey, you're walking away with your baby. Like that is the
Yeah.
ultimate prize. And I love,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's perfect. I love how you captured to you 9 months, 9 actually technically pregnancy is 10 months, but like 9,
Yep.
10 months of pregnancy, which is freaking long. And then, parenthood, which is forever. And labor, again, it's beautiful, it's magical, it is transformational in its own way too, but it is a smaller subsection of everything else. And so I really appreciate kind of your perspective going into it. So I'd like to take a moment to tell you this is my passion project based on years of experience as an OB/GYN doctor. I aim to empower moms and moms-to-be and those in the pregnancy and postpartum care space. If you appreciate what I do, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, suggestions, or questions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. Before we go into your actual labor story, because it feels like it's a juicy one, can you help me think, can you share how you decided to do a 39-week induction? Because that's something that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
This kind of 39-week elective induction, pros and cons on either end. I have my own spiel that I give as a obstetrician, but I'd love for you as a patient to kind of
Yeah.
talk us through how you guys got to that.
So yeah, totally. We got to it. I think it was our 30, maybe I guess 8-week appointment. And
Yeah.
I had done one cervical exam. I
Mhm.
didn't do like a weekly cervical exam. I chose,
Mhm.
my OB was like, actually, I really, it's totally up to you. But
Mhm.
we did one. And so even in that first one, I was already making progress. I was already like,
Yeah.
and that was like, maybe, I don't know, time is weird now, but let's call it like 35 weeks or something. I was already
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
a centimeter dilated, and like my cervix was already a bit soft.
Yeah.
Not nearly where labor
It
needs
needs
to
to be,
be,
but it's starting
but it was
something.
starting something. And so I
Yeah.
think by 38 weeks, my OB gave us the option. She was like, "Hey, you've generally had a healthy pregnancy. There isn't any concern. You have the option to do this. You can also very much just wait and see how it goes and let labor naturally progress." She did let us know that, after 40 weeks, it's just it's going to get harder. And like at some point there will have to be an intervention. So she's
Mhm.
like, again, it's totally up to you. We ultimately decided, again, from like an optimization perspective,
Yeah.
we were like, okay, great. Let's do it because we're gonna get our OB on the day of, more than likely on the day of delivery. Like, you can't
Yeah.
fully plan it, but we're like, "Okay, she's on call on Monday. If we go in on Sunday, we start the induction process, she will at least be there during a majority of it, and ideally, she's
Yeah.
delivering the baby." And so, it felt really comforting knowing that.
Mm.
And also we just really trust her. And so we just went in with this like utmost trust, and I still absolutely trust her. What ended up happening was not her fault at all, but that was the intention of us going in. And so I remember it was like a Thursday. It was the Thursday before. So I ended up giving birth on Monday. It was the
Mhm.
Thursday before we made the decision, and my husband and I drove up to like a hill up here in the Berkeley area, and just
Uh-huh.
did an overlook of the Bay Area, and I just kind of, like, cried, and I don't even know what I was. Oh,
Mm.
you don't know why you're crying when you're pregnant, but I was just crying, and
Yeah.
I think I was just kind of like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was gonna happen this quickly." Granted, I was only, like, a week or 2 away from my actual delivery date, but, like, there was something just like, "Oh my gosh, it is happening now." I
Yeah.
describe it as, like, my life. My daughter's name is Kahani, so I describe it as, like, my life before Kahani is gonna end on Sunday, and it
Mm.
was just wild to be like, "This is my before life, and my after life
Mhm.
is starting," and, like, of course, you're so excited, but it is, like, the morning of your, like, before life,
Yeah.
and so I just remember that being very vivid. That Thursday we went, and then Sunday afternoon, we went into the hospital, and I just, like, checked in. It was, like, very seamless, and versus, like,
Mhm.
I think that was also another reason is, like, the concept of, like, rushing over felt scary for us. We're also in the East Bay, driving over to San Francisco.
Mm.
Not that I think that it would have been a problem per se, but the fact that it was
Mhm.
already progressing a little bit did make us slightly worried that what
Yeah.
if,
Yeah.
I don't know, there was like a protest and things were shut
Yeah.
down or like
Who knows?
couldn't get there. And granted, then you would have been the person delivering me, which would have been incredible.
Gladly.
But yeah, that was some of the rationale for why we did it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. No, thank you for sharing. I think my favorite part of my job is probably similar to what your how your OB practice informed decision making, right? She went over like the pros and cons on either side, and really just made sure that you and Mike felt empowered to make the decision that was best for you. And I especially just I think I can think of the same hill. Do we all go to the same hill? It's like near Berkeley campus. It's a
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
hill. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I can imagine you at the hill and really thinking of yourself, yeah, like before your daughter and post your daughter and recognizing that there's mourning about like the before you, but as you already shared, like also a celebration of this like beautiful butterfly that's emerging from the cocoon that is motherhood, and both are allowed to be true, right? That both can coexist. That's part of like understanding matrescence is that there can be two conflicting viewpoints and
Yeah.
two conflicting emotions in us at the same time. So thank you for that beautiful visual. Okay, so your labor sounds it sounds exciting. You said so you literally said it wasn't my OB's fault. So
Yeah.
as an OB, I'm like, what happened? Tell
People have like very long, horrendous labor stories. So I'm just one of the hundreds and thousands of crazy labor stories. Now I've just learned that I don't know. I don't know if I've heard of anyone that has like a like just chillin' labor. I think there's always something that comes up.
There's always something.
Yeah, so I mean, what ended up happening was we went into I actually thought my water broke on Sunday afternoon. We were scheduled to go in at like 6 PM that evening. We ended up going in at like, let's call it 1 or something. I thought I had like gushing water coming out. I realized there wasn't. I don't know what it was. I didn't pee
Yeah.
myself. I don't know what it was, but
Yeah.
there's like
You're just pregnant
I'm
and
just
like this is
pregnant.
what the vagina does.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a lot
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, yeah.
So I learned my water didn't break. And so they're like, okay, great, we're going to start the induction. But again, the optimizers and us were like, wait, but what if it happens too quickly and our doctor doesn't come in? So we're like, no, 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 hold. And so we actually just chilled at the hospital for a while and then they gave me the like, whatever, half of the miso pill or whatever
Yeah, the misoprostol, uh-huh.
at 7 PM. And like, I'm chilling. We're like watching TV shows. We're like hanging out. Like everything's great.
Yeah.
And I think it was at like maybe 10. They were like, "Okay, do you want the next half of it?" And or not even want, I think it's not my choice. They're like gonna give
Yeah.
so they gave me the second half of it and they're like, "Okay, now get some rest." And I think it was either right before then or right before either somewhere in between that time frame, they asked, "Do you want an epidural?" And I said, "No, I think I'm like starting to labor a little. I can feel some things, but I'm not in a like painful situation."
Yeah.
So, why don't you just like let me just rest? And then once it happens, it happens. They're like, great. Like the anesthesiologist will show up after he does his rounds and he'll show up. And I was like, great. And so the second miso was in me. Nothing was really being felt. And then all of a sudden, everything was being felt. And it was this like
Oh god.
moment where you're just like, again, my birth plan was don't feel anything
Yeah.
and don't feel anything and have the baby. So,
Yeah.
um, I know it's like not totally realistic. So then I'm laboring and
Yeah.
great. It's like now, it's midnight and I'm really in it and I'm feeling it. And unfortunately, the anesthesiologist is stuck in a C-section that he can't
Of
get.
course. Of
And so
course.
now I'm laboring. They're like, okay, do you want fentanyl? And I was
Yeah.
like, great. Whatever you need to
Yeah.
give me,
Drug me up.
drug me up. So they give me the like half dosage and I like feel
Mhm.
kind of like dizzy and then I like feel and then I'm like, this is great. I'm amazing. Like I finally feel
Yeah.
relief.
Good.
Then it wears off. Or actually, no, it's about to wear off and the anesthesiologist comes in, very like competent, lovely human,
Yeah.
and he administers epidural.
Yes.
And he asks, do you feel like a feeling in like a click in your thigh or something? And I
Uh-huh.
was like, yeah, I feel that. And he's like, great. That
Okay.
means it's like working. And I was like,
Yeah.
amazing. And he's like, yeah, you'll get the full effect in about 20 to 30 minutes. And I was like, amazing. So he like goes off and does his thing. 20 to 30 minutes go by and I feel nothing. I feel the only place that feels numb is my thigh, and my entire like abdomen, stomach, back feels everything. And now I'm like
Yeah.
hooked to a catheter and I'm laboring and the anesthesiologist has left and I'm now
Yeah.
laboring. And I think I was absolutely in active labor, probably in transitional labor. And you know this
Yeah.
better than anyone. But at that point, I was getting contractions like at one point I was getting contractions like every like 30 seconds, it felt like. And they were it was like a 30 seconds and then like a minute and a half contraction and then like a 30-second break and then like a minute and a half contraction.
Oh.
And so it was really,
Oh.
really hard. I
Yeah.
I know women do this and they're
Yes.
badass and like more power to you. The way I described my experience though was like, imagine you had the intention to like get to an like get to a place, get to an island, and I'm like, yeah, I want to take like a chartered jet flight. Like that was my plan. And
Uh-huh.
now I'm basically being told to like run there and you've done no training and you're basically like running a marathon with 0 days of training. And so like again,
Yeah.
women do labor completely naturally with no intervention. That's incredible. But for someone that like hadn't prepared, it was crazy. Like
Yeah.
it was a visceral, guttural laboring process, and it was unfortunately, this anesthesiologist was busy, and there was only one anesthesiologist on call, and
Yeah.
I don't really kn I believe in 2024 when I delivered, I would think that the system would be a little bit better and that there'd be more anesthesiologists, but unfortunately there wasn't, and so I was
Yeah.
just laboring for, like, hours without intervention. At that point, we'd gotten another fentanyl, but it wasn't working.
Yeah. Because you probably were just too far along in your labor for it to like, at a certain point, like, when you're in like, progress in active labor, it just
Yes.
doesn't work enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it didn't hit, and then finally, I think we had done, like, another one more big hit of fentanyl, and then it did
Mhm.
calm me down. At that point, I remember just, like it was, like, out of my control, I just started crying,
Mm.
and I was just, like and I think I was, like, crying like I was, like, a little girl. I was like, "That hurts so much." And I was just, like
Oh.
I'd been fighting the entire time, and I was like my husband and my mom who were there told me that I was actually really, like, generally quiet during it. Like, I was very
Yeah.
concentrated and, like, making guttural noises, but I was, like,
Yeah.
actually not, like, screaming or, like I was actually very quiet because I was basically just, like, fighting through all of that for hours
Yeah.
as it was
Yeah.
happening. And then once I finally got relief, I just started crying. Then the anesthesiologist comes back and he was like, "Oh, should we, like, do, like, an uppage?" You know what this called? It's called, like, a
Bolus.
bolus. I was gonna call it a
Yes.
boil, but a bolus,
Yeah.
and I was like, "No, get me." I was like, "That's not working. We've tried the boluses.
Yeah.
that's not a thing." So then he gave me a second epidural. I
Okay,
got a
good.
second epidural and then finally got relief. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it was gnarly. So then I'll just quickly get to the end of this. I finally got maybe like an hour of sleep and they wake me up and they're like, "Great news, you're 10 centimeters dilated and you're 100% effaced. Time to push." So
Yeah.
I'm like, at 1 hour of sleep, I'm like really excited that it's time to push. So I
Yeah.
start pushing, and I'm at this point so exhausted. Like I literally
Mm.
couldn't, I was falling asleep during my pushing, like basically so
Yeah. I've
exhausted
seen that.
where I'm like pushing and then I'm like, just let me know when the next one is. And then like pushing
Yeah.
and they're like, push. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then like, doing the thing. And I
Yeah.
pushed for about an hour
Yeah.
and my OB comes in and she's like she does a cervical check and she's like, "You really haven't made" not she's like, "You're doing an incredible job, but
Yeah,
baby's
yes.
head is very large. There hasn't been a bunch of progress." And
Yeah.
she's like, "I have the lowest C-section rate at this hospital. I really wouldn't
Yeah.
normally recommend it, but I do think in this situation" again, she's like, "You have a choice. You can
Yeah.
continue to push and you may get progress, but in this situation, I do wanna offer a C-section." And
Mm.
so I ended up having a C-section
Yeah.
shortly after, of which I also felt like I was basically just falling asleep during that process, but finally we got her out, and that's
Yeah. Girl, 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 girl. I mean, again, this is why I'm enjoying that despite the fact that we're neighbors, I get to hear your birth story live because all my reactions are fresh. One, that analogy that you gave of like planning to like take a private jet to an island versus having to like run there or swim there or whatever. Yes, like there are plenty of birthers who mentally and physically prepare for their goal of a natural birth. Not everyone gets there, but like, and I say that whenever patients or friends of mine ask about like, yeah, like I don't know, I'm going to try to avoid an epidural. I think it's because, and I say this with utmost respect, because there's a reason why I have not birthed yet. Like it is fucking, it's badass. It's hard work.
Yes.
It is just the most physical thing that anyone could go through besides the pain. I think they always say like that labor is the most painful thing, like up there with like having pancreatitis or kidney stone. But it's also physical. Those are like acute pain processes that kind of can like be dissipated with medication. But like labor, as you experience, was hours of you coping with pain without adequate anesthesia from the epidural. And so I think in order to achieve a natural labor, quote unquote, in terms of no epidural, you really do have to have like a mental and a
Yes.
physical preparation for it. And so, and I respect that. And even with that mental, physical preparation, sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you recognize that that's still not what you want. And I think that's why my biggest thing in any birther story, and whoever is listening, is if you do end up opting for an epidural, even if it wasn't your plan, like don't take that as defeat, and
Yeah.
don't be hard on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like to birth is literally something that our male counterparts could never do. Can you imagine if men were the birthers? C-section rates would be 100,
Yeah.
like 100. Everyone would just be like, "Nah, got the baby out of me.
I know.
Don't want to."
I
This
know.
is my husband who has like anytime he coughs, he's like, "It's the flu. I'm done. I have the flu. Hospitalize me." So anyway, so I say that because you endured, and I can imagine, there are. I mean, I've been in so many birthing rooms. There is that like that focus where it's an eerie quiet because
Yeah.
you are so internal and you're doing
Yeah.
everything you can, just like, "Well, I just got to get through this. I just got to get
I
through
didn't have a
this. Got to get
choice.
through this."
It's
Yeah.
so like we're like, there's the next one, like there's the next, like
Yeah.
you can't even you can't talk, you can't there's nothing you can do except
Yeah.
go through it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it was I mean, I'm very proud of myself for having gone through it, but
Yeah.
holy crap. It is a big mental game, right? And it's a big like
Yeah.
so I fully understand, like hypnobirthing practices and how women and I didn't do
Mhm.
any of that because again, that wasn't I was like, I'm just not gonna I don't want to feel any I want to be doing like I want to be those women on Instagram that like doing their manicure and like doing
I
their
know.
makeup and like oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like having a dance. That was my plan.
Yeah.
Like
That was your
watching
plan.
TV. Like
And
we downloaded Netflix movie. Like I watched zero. Zero movies were watched.
I blame your daughter because I mean, from day one, she had a different
She
plan.
did.
She had a different plan. And then, you tell your story, the end of your labor story, the part that led to the C-section so eloquently. When you thought about the C-section, or as you think about it now, like what was that like for you to
Mm,
be able to, again, your OB was a great OB, and that she said, you can keep pushing, but from my medical opinion, this is also what I recommend. And you had agency, you had choice in that moment. Did you, when you said yes, let's do a C-section, was that a feeling of acceptance and something that you were at peace with? Was there any feelings of disappointment? Like
yeah.
what was that emotional process for you?
I was shocked that because I was to me it was just about getting the baby out in whatever healthy way. That was the intention. But after having like I felt like I was in this like I'd gone through like a war, like a physical
Mhm.
war. And then the next day they were like, you're 10 centimeters dilated, you're 100% effaced. I was like elated. Literally, like I was like, I want to call my parents in the room. I want to tell them. Like I was so excited
Aw.
to like push and get this baby out. And so when I was told that it wasn't working, I actually felt a lot of disappointment, which is
Mm.
really
Yeah.
surprising to me. And I think because I don't know, I had endured, I had like done what I had done. And I was like, we're so close. We're right
Yeah.
there. Like, I just wish I could have just pushed and gotten her out.
Yeah.
And so it was a bit of a disappointment, but also,
Yeah.
I was so appreciative of my OB being the one to then do the surgery,
Mm.
because that was really scary. Like that
Yeah.
after and again after the failed epidural, like I was all kinds of out of it. Like they get me in, they prep me, yada yada, and then they're doing the anesthesiologist is doing his thing, and
Yeah, yeah.
anesthesia, and I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, I asked so many times, I was like, "Are you gonna, like, test to see if it works? Are we gonna triple,
Yeah.
double, quadruple check to see if it works?" Because I,
Yeah.
like, lost faith in that
Oh,
moment, and I think that was a
that's
really
fair.
interesting moment where, like, I had come in with such high trust of the system. Again, not to say, like,
Mm.
anything can happen, I don't wanna be like, "The system is completely failed." Yes, we know that there's
Yeah.
optimizations, but I think that was a moment for me in which I lost trust of the system,
Mm.
and I felt this deep need to be in advocating mode, and I understood why people were like, "You need to make sure you have, your husband or someone is gonna advocate for you." My husband's doing an incredible job advocating, but I even felt this, like, I was like, "I don't trust anyone anymore." So, like,
Yeah.
it has to be my OB that is going to be doing the surgery. It has to be, like, you have
Yeah.
to make sure that this anesthesiology, 1, I didn't want the same anesthesiologist, I wanted a different one,
Yep.
and thankfully the other, he was not a bad anesthesiologist, it just
Yeah, yeah.
happens.
It
But at
happens.
that
It
point,
definitely
I don't think
happens.
I could, like, deal with the same person. I, like, needed, thankfully, I got another person,
Mhm.
and then the C-section went, I think, as normal as C-section can go.
Yeah. Good. No, but you're right. You think of the people who come into any healthcare setting, let alone their labor with distrust because it's distrust from either experiences they've gone through personally or family members, or there's a huge history of healthcare distrust
Yeah,
amongst Black and brown people because
absolutely.
unfortunately the medical history around that. But you came in being like, high trust, you're right? Like
Yeah,
these people got me, I'm good. And then this is why there's a podcast about this and that. Like, I think people don't give credit to how what a vulnerable state it is to be a birthing person where you're coming in with whatever degree of trust that you have, but even if your trust level is low, you just know that you're dependent on this birthing team to take care of you, or the opposite when your trust level is high and then you get disappointed again, not because it was anyone's fault, but because this healthcare system is is doing the best that it can in all circumstances, but sometimes things don't go exactly according to the plan, right? Sometimes the epidural catheter placement isn't you're exactly in the right
yep,
space or whatever it might be. I'm not an anesthesiologist. I'm like, I don't know what they're really doing back there, but I know, to some degree what they're supposed to be doing. And so I think that like sometimes people part of to me prepping for labor isn't so much the playlist, the mood, the vibe, the music. That's all fun. I actually, I like to walk into a room where like there's a good playlist going on. That is fun. A vibe is fun. But
totally.
it's about like the mental preparation. That's like to me the big part is like coming in knowing, okay, well, you know, if I'm in a situation where something unexpected happens, like, do I feel like I can advocate for myself? Okay, if I think I might be so in the zone with my labor pain that I can't advocate for myself, who else is in that room? Is it
Yeah,
my partner speaking up for me? Is it my doula? Right.
yep,
And so I think that any mental prep people can do to just know that, hey, labor is full of unexpected twists and turns. And it's not because your healthcare team is trying to do anything bad so much as like that's actually why we all exist because we just know that sometimes things can just happen and we just
yeah,
all want to be ready. Nurses, anesthesiologists, OB docs, midwives, but also, yeah, who can speak for you in that? But I also what I heard from you, sir, that I really loved is, that moment of being so proud of yourself for enduring labor pains that you had no plan
yeah,
of feeling. You were trying
zero
to get a
plan.
pedicure, lashes, like, or whatever, and then you felt it, and you were just like, "I'm a fucking badass. Let's go.
I
I'm a
know. And they
warrior."
were like,
And then
they're like, "Your pushing is really good." And I was like, "I'm a
yeah.
badass pusher. I'm like a great
Yeah.
pusher." So I was just really
Yes.
proud of myself for, like,
Yeah.
doing this, you know?
Yes. And I think that you can still feel that disappointment of being like, "Man, like, I saw that the finish line that people often say is ultimately like a vaginal birth." But like, I oftentimes are trying to encourage patients that like, yes, even though the like goal endpoint that everyone is aiming for is a vaginal birth, like as someone who was born abdominally, I was a C-section baby and I just turned out just fine. It's just also just recognizing there's two ways to come into this world and not to minimize again like that disappointment, that hurt or the anguish. Like people everyone is supposed to feel those feels when you go from like that was my plan and this is where I am now, but really saying that like but you were still a badass like
Totally.
uh, into the C-section. You're still a badass in the C-section, like having surgery on your
I
body
know.
also while you're awake, which is the best thing for moms and babies, but still like that you still are a badass and you're a badass to recover from a C-section and still care for a newborn. Like
Yes.
I think it's just reminding everyone that like the badassness doesn't end even if you don't have a vaginal delivery. Like You be a badass.
Yes, yes. And it's
Yeah.
true, like, thinking about it now, it's like, holy crap, I had every version of labor, and I had intended to have like, in my mind, VVIP version, just, like, epidural me and get this thing out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it ended up being, unmedicated, medicated, C-section, like, it was just all these versions.
Yeah.
Absolutely feel like a badass coming out of it. Yeah, C-section is no joke. The
Yeah.
crazy feeling of, like, your baby getting hoisted out of your abdomen, like, just the abdominal cavity is wild.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the recovery it's a whole thing, like, not being able to even
Yeah.
walk for, like, a day or 2, right? Like, it was crazy,
Mhm.
right? The whole thing is
Yeah.
gnarly. Women are
Yeah.
badass.
Yes, badasses. Like that's what I love about my job. I have a daily reminder every day just how phenomenal women are. And it's just fucking and I am like the ultimate cheerleader. And to me, this podcast is my chance of being like, you go girl. You go girl 100 times
Yes.
over. Fast forward and not really fast forward, right? There's like the hospital recovery time, but really, thinking about like motherhood
Yeah.
and you're in the first 9 months of it. Um, I mean, like, yeah,
Right.
how's it been? We talked about like preparation for family planning, like from
Yeah.
embryo making to preparation for labor. But what I find is that most of us don't prep for postpartum and motherhood because our system isn't built for that. And again, this is why I'm having said podcast is to like just create space and acknowledge that, yeah, I I am not doing my patients the service they deserve because I don't have time to like talk about matrescence and talk about postpartum besides like, hey, how's breastfeeding going? Hey,
Yep.
is your bleeding stop? Okay, sounds good. See you never. Like it's shitty. It's really shitty.
Yeah.
So I feel really bad and guilty as an OB. And luckily, I've created a space where I can acknowledge that out loud. But how has motherhood been for you so far?
Yeah.
Celebrating your 9 month
I
anniversary as
know.
a mom.
I know. I mean, today versus week 1, week 2, month 1, month 2, month 3 is wildly different. Let's put it that way. I
Right.
think, like, you asked the question of what was, like, the most shocking thing about pregnancy. I think pregnancy I was generally prepared for because like you said, we talk about it so much. There's so many
Yeah.
systems in place. The thing I was most shocked by was the 4th trimester and how we do
Mhm.
not talk about the 4th trimester. The 3 months, especially for me in particular, the first 2 months were just really crazy.
Mhm.
I struggled with postpartum anxiety. I felt really out of my body and out of myself. Like, I didn't feel like me. I was profusely crying. I wasn't able to fall asleep.
Yep.
I'll be candid, I've been on an SSRI for a long time.
Yeah.
Was working with a doctor who was prescribing medication who maybe hasn't worked with a lot of women, but didn't prep me to be like, you're probably going to need a little uppage of dosage. And then
Yeah.
only postpartum did I end up upping my SSRI a little bit to just like ease me off of the massive hormonal drop that happened in the
Yep.
literally first 24 hours of having
Mhm.
given birth. I describe it as like you're pregnant and you're like this gorgeous, plump grape that's like juicy.
Uh-huh.
And then you like give birth and then you're like a dry raisin, like
Mhm.
just sucked of your nutrients and hormones. And you're like left
Whew.
like, what was that? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's hard. The beginning was hard.
Mhm.
Oh my God, breastfeeding. Like, what a journey breastfeeding was. Especially
Yeah.
as you're learning about breastfeeding. And we could talk for hours about just this experience.
Yeah.
But like, I do think the misinformation or the information that different lactations consultant provided me personally was so anxiety inducing. I just felt
Aw.
very like, because, I understand the hospital system is what it is. I was in the hospital for 4 days after my C-section. We
Mhm.
elected for one more day. So could be there for 3 days, I think. And then we decided to stay for another day because it is,
Yeah.
in a way, it's like a luxury hotel and that you get all the
Yeah.
incredible resources. But it's also, on the flip side, wildly confusing because you're getting a lot of different information because you have different rotations, you have different lactation consultants. So I saw 3 different lactation consultants, and it was just, and I had taken a lactation course before. And Yeah, I struggled. I really struggled with this pressure of my baby was losing weight in the first few
Mhm.
days, and what were we gonna do about it? And we ended up, using donor milk because my milk hadn't come in. I was making a little bit of colostrum, and I was, like, doing some weird colostrum pumping and all this
Mhm.
stuff, right? But, like, milk hadn't come in, and she was just like, "I know it's normal, but man, that anxiety plus postpartum anxiety, plus just the whole new thing is crazy." Like,
Yep.
so it's like you're a brand new person, you feel like a raisin, all the happy hormones are gone. Um,
Yep.
you now have this baby that you're in love with, that you, like, wanna take care of. You have no idea how to do it. You're on all the time. Every hour you're doing something all the time,
Yeah.
really, and then you're
Yeah.
losing weight, because your milk hasn't come in, and there's a lot of maybe not unspoken, but it feels like pressure to be like,
Oh, yeah.
"This is the way to do it," you know?
Yeah.
Um, and oh my gosh, that was really hard.
Yeah.
Fast forward,
Yeah.
I ended up loving breastfeeding and ended up doing it for a lot longer than I intended to, which is I'm really proud of myself for that, but, like, the
Mm.
journey into it is not something to take lightly. And I
Mhm.
wish, like, I was so prepared for pregnancy, ish prepared for labor, and I just, like, had this mentality that, like, yeah, you figure it out, which you do. You do just figure it out.
Yeah.
But I do think that fourth trimester, I'm not even sure what the preparation would look like, but I just didn't realize how wild it was gonna be.
Yeah. I mean, you've spoken to so many themes, and so many reasons why I was inspired to create this podcast, and I still remember this patient. We had a great relationship. And, I saw her through her pregnancy, saw her for her 2 postpartum visits, and I saw her maybe a year or so later for a pap smear, and she just was like, "Yeah, by the way, Dr. Say, you really dropped the ball." I was like, "What do you mean?" She's uh, like, postpartum was real and you weren't there." And I was just like, "You know what? You're right."
Yeah.
And it wasn't me,
That's
right? Like, the ball that was dropped was, like, the collective we that is the healthcare system, because all we are afforded to do is see women for and birthers for like 2 postpartum visits at 2 6 weeks, because that's all insurance reimburses them for. But really, you don't actually even need me as your OB, right? Really, you need is your go-to lactation consultant who's consistent, who's
Yeah.
giving you non-conflicting information that you can trust. You need your go-to therapist. You need your go-to a pelvic physical therapist. You need to go to nutritionist.
Yep.
You need, to me, the ideal, and as I had the honor of having so many conversations on this podcast so far, and my husband's entrepreneurial spirit is now in me, where I'm
Yes.
like, the ideal
You
is
gotta
creating
make
like
it,
this.
make it.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it, but it's creating this like pod around women,
Yes.
right? Like, and honestly, what we're doing is we're recreating the village, because
Yeah.
the reason why breastfeeding is so hard, and the reason why postpartum anxiety is exacerbated by the pressure to feed your baby, the pressure to still somehow be a wife and be a sister and be a friend and everything else, is because we used to exist in these beautiful villages where you saw your auntie breastfeed a baby from day one. You just like boobs are out. Like,
Yeah.
back in the village days, we were all naked. So, like, you just saw everything at all times. You saw babies, you saw how people cared for babies, and you also had those same women in your village helping care for you. And I think that the irony of privilege is we all end up in these like silos, right?
Yeah.
We move away from our families. Our friends are off doing their own thing, and so we really then are hiring different postpartum support people to help recreate that village. And that's okay, because that's actually just what we need. Because to go
Yeah.
back to what we said earlier, we're animals, we're mammals, and we need community, we need support, especially in something as epically transformational as planning to have a baby, being pregnant with a baby, birthing a baby, and or starting a family, whatever that looks like. And so matrescence deserves every touch point along the way, but especially when you think about, I loved how you kind of separated your matrescence journey, right? We were just like, well, yeah, pregnancy was a big chunk, labor a blip, a painful blip,
Yeah.
but a
Yeah.
blip, and then motherhood is the
Yeah.
continuum, right? Because you are going to be a mother for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
beautifully, but like, and those first couple months, those first 3 months, and some women, it's the first 3 years,
Yeah.
is so, excuse my language, but so fucking hard. And so for me, it's like talking about it on the podcast is not to like actually like create negative noise so much as just like realistic noise and validating noise, right?
Absolutely.
Because I think what I'm also trying to counter is the fact that so many times you go on social media and it's like someone with their like snapback 3-month postpartum body, or someone
Totally.
saying,
Oh
"Oh
my
my God,
gosh,
like
that
breastfeeding is
phase.
easy. I have too much breast milk." It's like, look at
I
me.
know.
And so it's like, no, that's not real. That's not healthy. Like,
Yeah.
let's just acknowledge that it's hard. And some days you look like a goddess, like,
Mhm.
with this effervescent glow, and other days you're a shriveled raisin because your baby has sucked every nutrient from you, and
Yes.
it's true, it's real.
Yeah.
And so I just want people to I thank you for being so candid about your postpartum experience, because I people deserve to hear more
Absolutely.
stories like this so they just don't feel so alone, because how many times have people said like how isolating postpartum is, because you to some degree you're like kind of stuck at home a lot with your baby on the couch at wee hours of the day, and just feeling like you're not the only one going through the thick of it.
Yeah, and again, I just appreciate you even having me on here to take a moment to reflect, because even as I'm speaking, I'm like, "Holy crap," like, it really is the craziest journey, and there's so many details that women go through along this journey, and like you said, a man would be fussing about one of the steps, and like, gosh, we do it and we just keep doing it, right? That
Keep
it just
going.
doesn't stop, and it's, the baby, especially in the beginning, really needs their mom, and so
Mhm.
and you just give and give and give and give and give. So yeah, I just appreciate the space to even just like reflect on what the last,
Yeah.
almost 2 years of my life have been like.
Yeah. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, from the moment you started freezing embryos to now, it's so much of what someone's life, and I think again, I think for anyone outside the maternal health space, or someone who physically didn't go through it themselves, it's too easy to be like, "Oh, it's just yeah, you get pregnant, you have a baby, you raise a family." Like, it's always feels like so flippant sometimes. I'm like, "No, no, no, y'all. Hold up, wait a minute. Spread the word about this whole thing, matrescence, because it's huge, it's epic." I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that you already knew the term, which means that you're sharing it with your friends, right? Like, I really think that everyone deserves that, like, in order to be fully seen pregnant in your pregnancy and postpartum, you need more terms like that, because I think that people too often just say like, "Oh, everyone else has done it before you, like, get through it, figure it out." I know that your time is precious.
Mm.
So as we wrap up, you've already been so generous not only with your time, but your candor. Any final sage words of advice or wisdom for any moms or moms to be there listening to us right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think just on a fun note, get yourself a water bottle, water bottle you love when you are postpartum, you're always thirsty. So that's just a fun note. But I think like on a more serious note, I think talk about what's going on. Know that you're not alone. There are incredible therapists in particular that are so wonderful in supporting mothers, new mothers that are dealing with postpartum. So I think that was really lovely and reassuring. I had created a women's, it's like a mother's group, like all of us delivered,
Oh,
like even just having like a group of women to
yeah.
late at night, like, "Who's awake? How's everyone doing?" Like, that was just really nice to have a little bit of a community, so if you can create a community for yourself, whether you know the
Mhm.
people, don't know the people, like, it is a wild experience, and know you're not alone, and know that there are people that are more than willing to share in your experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. It's all about that village, and we deserve that community. We deserve that support. I'm glad that you were able to create it yourself. And again, I'm so glad that sharing a wall, you
Yes!
can feel my energy. I'm like, I'm touching you right now.
Yes,
I'm so grateful that sharing the wall that we have has just brought us together.
of
Thank you
course.
again for sharing your story. I love that I got to hear it
Yeah,
live
I know.
on this
Yeah.
episode. It's an epic one, and your daughter was totally worth it. And I love that she like came into this world her own way. She's created her own way. She came in this whole world her own way. Not that we're gonna be neighbors probably by the time she's 18, but I'm curious of just
Who
like
knows?
who she's gonna become. Who knows? Let's all just live here forever. Anyway, but all seriousness, thank you, thank you, thank you. This
Of
was an
course.
absolute pleasure. Like
I'm
so
so
much
glad
fun.
you asked me to be on this. This is incredible, and thank you for creating the space. And you better start that company. Create the village.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna come to you. You'll be my like my
Oh
coach.
my
You're gonna
gosh,
coach me
yes,
through it.
yes.
Yeah.
Any day.
It's all coming together full circle. Anyway, I appreciate you, Aarti. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening to The Golden Hour, the podcast community where moms and moms-to-be can hear stories from other mothers and learn from top experts in pregnancy and postpartum care. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share with your friends so we can reach more people like you. You can visit goldenhour.fm for more information, resources, and all other episodes. If you have any requests, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, please email me at hello@goldenhour.fm or leave us a comment at goldenhour.fm on Instagram. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, stay golden.